Welcome everybody. Today is Thursday, August 14th, 2025, and we're going to be taking a look at the usual. But starting real quick, I just wanted to speak very briefly about the PPI and CPI data that was released today. So, as you guys know, core inflation was back above 3%, and PPI had its hottest print in over 3 years, actually. So, when you mix that with, obviously we want lower interest rates, and that's what the president's trying to get. So, when you have, 300 basis point cuts in the conversation at the same time with this type of, inflation spike, is a lot of things that could really go down. It wasn't ideal what we saw. So it's reaccelerating to some degree. I mean, it's not really a question anymore of if they'll cut rates. It's how many rate cuts will we get. So if we get one or two more for this year, that's fine. But, obviously the president saying, they should cut rates by 3 points. It could be dangerous. We don't know. We'll see. But just keep that in mind. It was a hot print. It did scare the markets a little bit. So when we do look at SPY and see kind of what happened, we can get an idea right here just looking. So obviously we opened lower. We opened about right here. We opened about 642. Oh, let me go back. Make selection. Share window. All right, just let me know if you guys could see now. You should be able to. Awesome. So, like I said, I was just mentioning, we had a hot print, right? So, markets don't always love that, especially, highest in 3 years. So, market opened today lower right here, about 642 SPY, you could see. Kind of pushed to a new high day, came back down, pushed higher. It's kind of just chopping. But when we go to the daily chart, still seems fine to me, Ever since we had that gap down last week, SPY is up $20. So just keep that in mind because, while everybody wants to say the top is in and all this, we have to let the charts do the talking. For most of the degree, I would say. And obviously the SPY, we had a lower high a few weeks ago on that gap down, but ever since, the weekly BX trender is looking okay. So that's a good thing to see, even with a bad print. So similar to SPY and the Qs, both had a gap down, daily BX flipped, and back to new all-time highs. So we're going to be keeping that in mind. Obviously, there's a big possibility this RSI does come down in the coming months. And, I'm not ruling it out. If I switch the 10 MA to the 200 real quick, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So the 200 MA on the Q is about 513, which is about 10% lower, give or take a few points. So, obviously as time goes on and we see this RSI continue to climb, we want to keep in mind that it's not a bad time to rotate profits. That's part of the game. That's part of compounding. So like I said, SPY and the Q is very similar right now, still intact, still very much intact. We look at the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones made another push on the weekly. The Dow Jones also looks good. It's about to crack new highs. And yeah, the monthly is forming higher lows. So Dow Jones is looking really good as well. Let's take a look at Berkshire, which today after hours they announced the purchasing of $5 billion worth of shares for United Health. And this is a stock that we were talking about for weeks. And there was a rumor, early rumors, that Berkshire was trying to get into this company. I don't blame them. I mean, if you look at UNH, the weekly RSI is like below 30 at like last week or something. It was ridiculous. So Berkshire obviously has been underperforming since the tariff lows here. We're basically at the same spot compared to the SPY and the Q. You know, you look at the SPY, obviously it's doing much better than Berkshire this year. So, something to keep in mind as a rotation target, like I've been saying the past couple of weeks. Because obviously, you know, the risk reward is much better. So, yeah. All right, so let's look at Tesla. Start with the Maggies. So Tesla the last couple months, just consolidating over and over and over. And on the weekly chart, it's getting pretty tight on the weekly, if you ask me. I mean, this range really is getting tight. You know, we could have one more pull down, maybe over here towards this area, towards the 50 MA at 320. That would be a great time to buy some more Tesla. But as you can see, the weekly chart, very much intact, very much strong. And the monthly chart is forming a higher low right now. So you see on Tesla, obviously just coiling for 5 years. NVIDIA. NVIDIA is, it looks like a sell to me on the daily. As you can see, the BX trender is starting to show some sell pressure. The weekly BX trender is forming a higher low right now. Excuse me, a lower high. So you guys can see that right here on the BX trender. This week we close tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll find out if we start to close lower. And that'll be a sign, an early sign, I should say. So those type of things we want to watch, because NVIDIA can keep running. We don't know. But with the daily RSI at 70, the weekly RSI pushing 72, you know, I'm leaning more as a sell. If you're up, you know, from 110, 120, 130, you should trim half your position. Why not? Take some profit. You know, place it elsewhere. Place it into United Health, Berkshire. There's so many other things that have good risk reward right now. Not that NVIDIA is not a powerhouse. It's literally the king of AI. But, you know, just something to keep in mind. That's all. Amazon. Obviously, Amazon had some great news following that gap down last week, which was pretty ugly. It filled it today, which was awesome, as you guys can see. So Amazon flipped back on the daily yesterday, and today we had continuation. That's what we want to see, especially if you're long. The weekly just corrected itself. It was going pretty bad. You know, it was going down 2 weeks in a row, and then this week we're looking good. Again, we'll find out tomorrow. But Amazon starting to look pretty good. The monthly VX is green. I mean, this thing should take off to new heights in no time. Probably a couple months, depending on what the market does into the end of the year and when we do get a little breather. But yeah. Let's take a look at Apple, which we've been tracking for a while. It's finally getting the monthly higher low. We've been calling this for weeks and weeks and weeks, as Apple has just been flat for a couple months. You know, we had the earnings, we had that little rug pull to raid the stop losses, and there goes Apple. So, if you've been following me the last few months, you know I've been saying this has been the best risk-reward setup in the Magnificent Seven. It is not even close right now. Apple was down 20% over here for the year to date. I mean, it was just a no-brainer. You know, yeah, you could talk shit about Apple. I get it. There's a lot of things going on. People saying they're not doing enough with AI, but at the end of the day, their net income is $100 billion a year. and growing. And they just had their best guidance in over 5 years. So I do expect Apple, zooming out to the monthly chart, I definitely expect Apple to make new all-time highs. If not by the end of this year, then early Q1 next year. So it's that simple, guys. This is why we keep it simple. We just wait. We trusted our weekly BX trender here. It did not lie. And it does not fail us. So, yeah. Moving on to Microsoft. Obviously, this thing's just been on a run. I think it has put it in a short-term top for now, to be quite honest. And looking at the weekly BX trender, I think you guys would agree. As of right now, Microsoft, you guys see this, right? I'm not just talking to myself. So, monthly's good. No, you don't want a full port, but I mean, bruh. Once you start seeing these lows get taken out, I would say here. Once 510 gets taken out, I think it's a short. Now, I know you're kidding. I know. But, yeah, just keep that in mind. I mean, Microsoft is a beast. I wouldn't go out and try shorting any of these beasts, but except for Tesla. Tesla is easier. So look at Google, huh? Look at this. Ever since the weekly flipped, I mean, just incredible, guys. I mean, you could say, every trade mod is different, every analyst on Wall Street is different, but when you stick to your strategy, these are the results that you get. It's really that simple. Google's looking amazing. Like, actually amazing. I mean, I know you guys see this. Just incredible. On the daily just flipped red today, actually, on Google. So that's something to keep in mind. But it is very, very... Oh, no, that's the 4 hour. Sorry. We got a lower high on the daily. So just keep that in mind. We're very close to all-time highs, so it's just a matter of time. But, weekly RSI is still lower than NVIDIA's. So, again, Apple's weekly RSI, 59. Last week it was at 45, guys. 45. So, we don't guess around here. Look at that W, by the way. W's. All right, Meta. Meta's looking strong. Although on the daily, it probably will fill this gap eventually. Although it has a tendency to not fill them. As you can see, there's one here. There's same thing for Amazon. But just we're going to take this week by week at this point because we have a rate cut basically priced in now for next month. So the whole market knows it's coming. It's not like it's a surprise anymore. So we need to keep that in mind as well. And yeah, that's pretty much a summary right now of the Mag 7. I would say the best looking ones right now are Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and Google by far. Yeah, if you guys have any individual tickers, we're going to take a look at a few, starting with Webull, which I've been watching the last couple of weeks. So obviously it merged as a SPAC in April, had a crazy run, came back down, filled this gap right here at 16, tried bouncing, lost support again, and now it's kind of just building a base, higher lows, higher highs, hopefully more higher highs to come. That would be great. But as you can see today, the last couple of days, it's kind of like trying to figure out what it's doing on the daily. On the 4 hour, we flipped a few times, but we're starting to get another higher low. So it's just a matter of time. Let's see if we can break this range. But to me, you know, I was a buyer all at these levels, high 14s, low 15s. So we're going to be watching bull as well. And yeah, I think this is a very clean looking chart. Let me know if you guys have any specifics you want me to take a look at, because we covered the Mag 7. If you need a brief recap, you know, Tesla, Apple, Amazon, and Google look the best. Let's take a look at Riot. I haven't looked at Riot. So the miners are starting to gain some momentum, which is something I wanted to speak about as well. Here's Riot. Riot's starting to look pretty good, actually. We got a flip, and we have this gap here, right, up to 13 bucks. So, shit. What's the weekly? The weekly's still trying to correct itself, but I mean, this is tough because you could have some pullback first. You know, so I would buy this slowly if you are going to enter Riot Dragon. UNH, obviously, we had the Warren Buffett news. It's at 298 after hours now. I mean, we look at our weekly BX trender. We were green. Well, we started to get the higher lows, right, in the early June. All right. Then we lost support. The BX flipped red for 1 week. And despite all the selling, the weekly BX trender still told us that this was a buy. So, yeah. I mean, it's still early. Obviously, you know, this is a long-term stock. You got to park your money in this for a couple of years and let this build a base down here, and eventually it'll go back up. So, if you got the balls to hold, congratulations. Just keep holding. You ain't seen nothing yet. Berkshire we just looked at, but I'll take a look again. So Berkshire is still near the tariff lows, right? So compared to SPY, Berkshire is severely underperforming the S&P 500. Obviously, Berkshire's doesn't have any exposure to AI, so it's much different company, well, much different index, if you will. But Berkshire, we're still waiting for signs of a bottom. The weekly BX is trying, as you guys can see here. So this is just a matter of time. It's a long-term stock. Like, just either way, it's money. So Oscar popped after hours also because of the Berkshire news. And I'm actually watching it very closely because if you look, the Oscar weekly right now is forming a lower low. But we have tomorrow. So if this gaps up tomorrow, this is going to be performing a higher low, which means Oscar is a hold. So we have this gap up here that still isn't filled all the way up to about $20. So to me, this looks like a good setup as well. We're going to see how we close tomorrow because it's going to be a big if. But all right, let's look at